So we're checking your homework from last night, which was 21 through 40, but we've already done the odd problems. Okay, we did those yesterday. So we're going to check the even problems, work through those answers. So you need to have a red pen out. I don't mind if you check your own. Okay, you can check your own. That's fine. So you can kind of see what you did wrong. Make sure you're fixing your review sheets. You need the correct answers on there. All right. So number 22 was a distance problem. Remember, with distance, I take the second number and I subtract the first number. So in this case, it made it a double negative. Okay? Well, a double negative changes to a positive. So now my answer is 4.2. Okay, 4.2. And remember, guys, if the difference is negative, you have to take absolute value because you can't have a negative distance. Okay? All right, so that's 22. Number 24 is an equation. So you're just solving your two-step equation. Remember, you move what's not connected to the variable first, and then you divide. X equals -6. Okay, so again, make sure you're writing the correct answers down so you have the correct answers. All right, number 26. 2 times 2x minus 3 is greater than 34. You must distribute first. 4x minus 6 is greater than 34. Add 6. 4x is greater than 40. Divide by 4. And x is greater than 10. So which numbers would go on my number line?
9, 10, 11.
9, 10, and 11. Open, dot, or closed?
Open.
Open and arrow going right. Okay? All right, number 28. On number 28, we had a word problem. It said you earn $15 an hour. How much do you have to work to buy a phone for $675? Okay, so if you want to buy the phone, it's $15 an hour. Now, does that need to be greater than or equal to or less than your total? What do you think?
Greater.
Okay. Why can't it be less than?
Because then you don't have enough.
Then you don't have enough money. Okay, so the cashier is not going to give you the product if you don't have enough money. So you need to earn greater than or equal to your goal amount. Divide both sides by 15. You need to work at least 45 hours.
Yes.
Okay. Number 30. 297 words in 5.5 minutes. Well, that's great, but I want to know how many words in 1 minute. So I have to make my denominator 1. So what do you divide 5.5 by to get it to 1? You divide it by 5.5. So whatever that number is in the denominator, you divide top and bottom by that value, and you get 54 words per minute. 54 words per minute. All right, number 32. You need to check to see if the two ratios form a proportion. Well, the way you do that is by cross products. You could also reduce the fractions to simplest form, although I do not recommend that method. I would do cross products. 108 does not equal 96, so you say no. Okay? You can, yes, but you have to show me the totals. Okay? All right, number 34. Number 34 is another proportion one. Remember, you're going to use cross products. Okay? 7 times 5 is 35. 10 times b plus 5. 10b plus 50 equals 35. Subtract 50. 10b equals -15. That is negative. Divide both sides by 10. And b is -1.5. All right. Next one, number 36. 7 over n equals 8 over 7. 8n equals 49. So n equals 6.125. You divide both sides by 8 on this step. Okay. All right. That's number 36. Number 38. A equals P times W. This is your percent problem. What are you solving for in this problem? You're solving for W. A is 520. What's your percent? What's your percent? 60, which is going to be 0.6 because there's nothing in my equation that does the converting for me. Now divide both sides by 0.6 and you get 866. 0.6 repeating. Okay? That's your W value. Number 40, guys. Now, these are going to be somewhat of a challenge. Okay? On number 40, hold on, let me turn there really fast. Sorry, 40 is percent of increase and decrease. I was already going to 42. Okay, so on number 40, I go from 40 inches to 75 inches. All right, what's my formula?
AOC over ORG.
Yes, AOC over ORG. What's my amount of change? 35 over 40. So that's going to be 87.5% increase. Okay, so that's it for your homework. I'm going to kind of pause the recording where we are. Take your homework grades. These are going to be 2 points apiece. Take those grades, tell you your averages, and while you are doing that, you need to be working on the even numbers for the rest of the worksheet. If you're done, you can work on something from another class, but you are not to be talking. Okay, number 42. I need you quiet, please. On number 42, it says a pair of jeans is originally $120, and it has been marked down by 80%. What is the sale price, or what is your price? Okay, so we're going to use the percent equation, A equals P times W. Remember, you have to use, a structured way of solving these. It's not just, your own, whatever, what's coming out of your mind. No, we want to operate within the percent equation, where A is our final price, P is our percent, and W is the original price. So it says that $120 is the original price. That's why it says originally $120. Okay, now if it's 80% off, how much did you pay? If it's 80% off, 20%. You pay 20%. So what is 20% of 120? It's $24. It's $24. That's how much it was off, right? Because it's 80% off. So it's $96 off. You paid $24. If you multiplied it by 80%, then you just have to turn around and subtract it then from 120, and you still would have got the right answer. Think about it practically too. It's 80% off. You're not going to pay very much money. Okay. Yes. Okay. Number 44. Number 44. I equals PRT. I is 24, P is our principal amount, not percent. R is the percent. T is the time. And why is the label important for time? What if it said months?
You would have to change it to years.
Yes, you have to change it to years because your formula will read it as years.
Right.
So if it's 2 months, you have to convert that. Otherwise, your formula thinks it's 2 years. So you just plug in your numbers. 24 equals 400 times R times 2. Well, what can you do now? What can you do now? Yes, I need to multiply. 400 times 2, commutative property says I can do that. 800R. Divide. Raise your hand if you got 3%. Good job. Okay, 46. I equals PRT again. Where your rate is 5%. What do you think 1,200 goes in for? What does 1,200 go in for? Principal. Okay, times time, which is 4. Okay, you multiply all this together. Is this your answer?
No.
What do you have to do?
You have to divide. You have to add.
Go back and add it to the original amount. Okay, and now that's your answer. Number 46. 1440. Number 48. Or I'm sorry, I'm going to go ahead and do 47, 48, and 49. Okay, what is the probability, all right, or describe the likelihood that you land a jump on a snowboard is 10%. So what word would you use?
Unlikely.
Unlikely, very good. All right, number 48, what word would you use? Certain. Number 49, what word would you use?
Chance.
No. Likely. 70% of the time is closer to likely than it is even chance. It's only 5% away from likely. Okay? All right, so now let's go over number 50. And I do need to apologize. I've already talked to you guys about this, but there is a typo in the instructions. It should be 200. And if you add up all the experiments in the chart, it adds up to 200. Why have 300 in there? I honestly have no clue. I apologize if that caused you any confusion. All right, it should be 200. So that affects all of your experimental probabilities. Okay, now you have to look at the chart. If you don't know what an even number is, you are not going to be able to calculate the probability. But since you are in honors math, I think that we're all there. We know that which numbers are even numbers in the chart. 2 and 4. How many outcomes landed on a 2? Are you paying attention? Because you've had these questions. All right. 43. How many outcomes landed on a 4? 37. So I need to add those together for my favorable outcomes because both of those numbers are favorable. It's 80 over 200. Well, what is 80 over 200 as a percentage?
40%.
40%. Okay, that's great. Now let's go over to theoretical. Theoretical says, what is the probability of an even number? Well, how many even numbers are on the spinner?
2.
There are 2 even numbers on the spinner out of how many numbers on the spinner?
5.
5, which is also 40%. And this goes along with what your book was telling you guys. Miles, do you have gum in your mouth?
Ma'am?
Spit it out.
Oh, sorry. Forgot about that.
Okay? This goes along with what our book was telling us about the more experiments you do, the more in line with theoretical probability it's going to be. For example, how many of you have ever played a board game and you rolled a 6 like 3 or 4 times in a row? And usually 6 is a really good number in board games. Yeah, and you're like, yes, okay. So there's, that's a pretty decent chance that you could do it. Now, what are the chances you could roll a 6 200 times in a row?
Not very likely. Not very likely.
Very unlikely or impossible. Okay? So what we're saying is the more experiments we do, the closer to the theoretical probability it's going to be. And in this case, on number 50, it's right on. Okay? How about let's just jump to number 53, which I accidentally did in the last class, so I'll just stick with it. What is 53? I know I labeled it 52. I'll change that in a second. What's the probability of spinning a 6?
0%.
0 for both. There is no 6. Okay? So now let's go and do the real 52. What is the probability of spinning a prime number? Let me ask you this. Is 1 prime? No. No. It is neither prime nor composite. So if you need to write that down in your notes, that would be a great thing to remind yourself of. Okay? Is 2 prime?
Yes.
Is 3 prime?
Yes.
Is 4?
No.
And is 5?
Yes.
So there are 3 numbers that are prime. So for the experimental part, you need to add all 3 of those results together. 43 plus 39 plus 40 gives me 122 out of 200, which is 61%. Okay, again, because I tried so many times, I would expect this to be close to my theoretical probability, but I'm not sure. I need to check. Well, out of the total number of spaces on the spinner, how many of them are prime? How many of them are prime? 3 out of how many?
5.
5, which is 60%. Oops. Which is 60%. Okay, so again, it proves our theory that the more times we try an experiment, the closer the experimental and theoretical probabilities get to each other. All right, number 54. All right, we're almost done, guys. Number 54 says you randomly choose a number from 1 to 5 and a letter from A to D. Find the total number of possible outcomes. 2 ways to do it. Tree diagram, fundamental counting principle. Which one are we going to do?
Fundamental counting principle.
Of course, we don't want to do a tree diagram, and this would probably be like an entire page. It would be a really big tree diagram because of all the categories. All right, so how many options are in category 1? How many numbers? There are 5 numbers, 1 through 5. How many letters are there in category 2? 5 times 4 is 20. 20 outcomes, okay? Number 56, this is your compound events, your compound probability. Spinning a number less than 3 and flipping heads. And what I would encourage you to do is to come up with your favorable outcomes. How many numbers on the spinner are less than 3? How many? There are 2 numbers that are less than 3, a 1 and a 2. And both of them you could spin a heads. So that would be 2 favorable outcomes. But wait a second. 2 out of what?
16. 16.
How many spaces are on the spinner?
8.
8 spaces on the spinner. How many sides are there on a coin? 2. 8 times 2 is 16. So it's about 12.5%. Number 58, what's the how many 6s are on the spinner? 1. And then I can only get tails once. So I only have 1 favorable outcome on 58. So it's going to be about 8.3 repeating percent. Okay? Is my probability of getting a 6 then a tails.
It's not, it's 18.75%.
1 divided by 12?
3 over 16.
No. Less than 3. There's only 2.
Oh, my bad.
No, I did 56. Spinning a number less than 3. There's only 2 numbers less than 3. You can only get 2 heads. 2 over 16 is 12.5. And then 1 over 12 is 8.3 repeating. All right, so that's going to be it for part 3 of our midterm review. What is 1 over? Oh, it's 1 over 16. Okay. Yeah, 1 over 16. Sorry. So 1 over, I don't know where I got 12 from. So 1 over 16 is going to be 6.25. That's much better. I don't like having repeating numbers. Okay, so 6.25% chance. Okay? All right, guys. All right, so that's it for part 2.